People sometimes ask me how I talk reticent actors into giving an interview. Well, in the case of Al Pacino, I think I just wore him down. We met on 2 different occasions over cappuccino to discuss the remote possibility of sitting down together. Sound glamorous? Well, at first it was work, because he was uncomfortable with the idea of someone asking him almost any question, and I couldn't change because how else do you do an interview? What did change is that over those coffees we got to know each other, and that made all the difference. He was born Alfredo James Pacino in 1940. His parents divorced when he was 2, and Al was raised by his mother and grandparents in the South Bronx. He had 2 passions, baseball and acting. In 1966, he was accepted by Lee Strasberg's famed actor studio in New York. He studied and worked his way up, doing off-Broadway shows and small TV and movie roles. He often played seedy street types and eventually landed the part of Michael Corleone in The Godfather. 2 sequels and 2 Oscar nominations later, it is one of the defining roles of his career. Pacino has also been nominated for other fine roles, including his 1973 performance as an undercover cop in Serpico, and his intense, strung-out characterization of a bank robber in Dog Day Afternoon. But not, unfortunately, for the role he told us he is most proud of, the Cuban drug lord in Scarface. After Scarface, however, and indeed for most of the 80s, Pacino appeared to be missing in action, surfacing only briefly in the box office bomb, Revolution. Then in 1989, he made a splashy return in the sexy thriller, Sea of Love. Pacino was back, and significantly, he had returned with a sense of humor, readily apparent in his Oscar-nominated turn in Dick Tracy. But when it came to nominations, 7 was his lucky number. Pacino finally won that Oscar for his portrayal of a blind war veteran determined to go out with a bang in Scent of a Woman. Pacino has never married, but has romanced over the years some very high-profile women, such as actresses Joe Claiborne, Tuesday Well, and Diane Keaton. He's been very secretive about his private life, and few people know, for example, that in 1989 he had a daughter from a brief relationship. Fame is something that Pacino is still struggling with. Odd, since acting is his life. When you were 8 or 9 years old in the South Bronx, where there were not, I don't know, kids in the neighborhood were not coming out and doing repertory. Kids don't. You knew then you wanted to be an actor?
It was something that I just did. It was as though I had the kind of, when I was very young, my mother took me to the movies because she worked, and the only time she'd get to see the movies and me was when she came home from work. So we would go to the movies. So I was watching films, and I would act out the parts. I remember I would come home. This is interesting. I was thinking of this now. I'd come home, and I'd always make an entrance, you know, at night from playing, and we'd come in, and usually it was a dying entrance. I'd enter and die all the way into the kitchen and die. And one day I was playing with a friend, and we were on a fire escape, and I was twirling around, and I landed on my head. And I got up, and my friend, of course, was laughing, you know. And he looked like blurry to me, and I wandered over to him, and he was still laughing. And because I guess it was a funny sight, seeing me fall from the first floor on my head, on concrete. I'm staggering home, and guess what? I go into my apartment, and I fall down. Only I really fell this time. My mother,
Everybody
I had a
applauded?
concussion. They thought I was kidding. I had a concussion, and the doctor came.
But when you look back, do you look back with a smile?
I do. I look
mean,
back
it was
fondly.
for you a relatively happy
I'm
job?
very happy it happened because I think it's helped me throughout life.
In what sense?
Well, I made relationships then. I had very close friends growing up.
So you weren't what they'd call a loner
No,
in those
I wasn't
days.
alone at all, no.
But when your mother died, and you were in your early 20s, was that, I mean, it's hard for anyone. Was it terribly hard for you?
Oh, yeah, because my mother was so encouraging to me, and I think that's why I'm here, is my mother encouraged me. And I realized that later on in life. And And that's what my mother gave me. And I missed that she didn't see me or any of it come to fruition. That I, you know, even a minor success would have meant a lot to her. And my grandfather, too, who raised me, he didn't see it.
He died a year later.
Yeah. So the two closest people to me died within a year of each other. And I wish they'd have seen it. It would have meant something to them.
When you did The Godfather, you were 31 years old, you were a stage actor, and suddenly this enormous fame.
Yeah.
But Al, when you had that fame and success, instead of it being wonderful, it wasn't those years after.
Yeah, well, you know...
What happened?
It's a relative thing, fame, and it works on different people differently. And what happened was interesting, and how it worked on me, is I didn't talk the way I usually talk. And I realized people were receptive to me. And I hadn't earned it. I had done nothing to earn their laughs or their interest or anything. And it felt kind of cool, you know, just to sit there and not have to earn it. And I think that's a trap you can fall into with fame, because life is people. It's being with people. It's interchanging with people. That's what life is. And when you're famous sometimes, that part of you can get cut off. And I'll tell you how, because you don't employ the stuff in you that makes you what you are, because you don't have to. And so I found myself, I felt victim to that a little bit. But I'm aware of it.
You had a whole series of successful films, and then for something like 5 years in the 80s, you didn't make any films. Were you turning down roles during that time?
Yeah, I was.
What'd you turn down?
Well, no.
Wall Street.
I turned down a few films, yeah.
Wall Street was one of them?
Wall Street was one. And the thing was that I found that as I just sort of dropped out, I was able to just find myself meshing a little bit more in life. I can't explain it. It's like I just became more involved with things, and you know, if you're gone, if you're not around, you know, you start to recede, and people do sort of...
People began to forget.
Well,
you could go places more naturally.
Yeah, it was very interesting, because it was somehow I felt freer. You know, I started rubbing shoulders with people again, and getting involved in a way that I remembered years ago. I had a guy say to me the other day, "Do you know who you are?" I thought that was good.
What'd you say?
I said, "I don't know, that's why I act. I don't know."
Are you sorry you didn't do Kramer versus Kramer?
No.
Are you sorry you didn't do Pretty Woman?
No.
Are you sorry you didn't do Absence of Malice?
No.
Are you sorry for any film you made?
Yeah, sometimes you make a film and you know when you're making it that, you know, you just made a mistake.
Did you want to do Godfather 2?
Well, no, I don't think I did.
Did you want to do Godfather 3?
Yeah, I thought it would be interesting to go
You
back
did.
and do 3. 2, I didn't want to do. It was right on the heels of 1, and I thought, you know, it's a tough repeat. I tell you, the thing is, you know, sometimes you make movies for a lot of different reasons. You're in places in your life. You never know where you are. You're like in a certain state. I mean, we change. Things happen to us all the time, and things are different. And obviously, you do a movie because of something. Now I do movies mainly for the role.
Let's talk a little bit about what you're doing now, Scent of a Woman.
Yeah.
It's a sensational performance.
Oh, thank you.
It really is. In the role, you are a man of tremendous pride and anger. You don't sit like this. There's a different way you sit.
No.
And there's a different way that you look. Is it possible for you to look at me as if you're blind and then look at me seeing? Can you show me?
You know, I could have showed you easier. I could show you now. See, I'm doing it
That's
now.
like you're doing it now.
So I'm not focused. I'm not seeing you.
Yeah.
But there it is.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Talk like
It's very strange.
that. Yeah, it does a whole thing to your body. And you see, it changes your Everything, the way everything moves. And
Your
that's all
head,
part of
everything.
Yeah.
How did you become a blind man?
Well, it's all mimicry, finally, in the end, for an actor. There's a lot of things you do. Plus, I've played blind before. It's like when you get a part as a police officer, and the first time you get a part of a police officer, you do a lot of different things than you would the second and third and fourth time you've played it. Things change. I mean, if I was painting this room, if I started painting this room today, and I had to paint this room every day for a year, the way I would be painting this room today and the way I would be painting this room in a year, it's a different painter. It's just practice, you know. It's doing it.
Next, Al Pacino on Fame and Fidelity. Can I ask you questions about your private life without your jumping out of the chair?
You know what? My hair might start falling off of you.
Well,
It's okay.
you have a little girl,
Yeah.
3 years old. To me, 3 years old is the most heavenly age.
It's the Batman age.
The Batman
Yeah.
age? What's it like for you to have a child?
Well,
Has it
it's
changed
different.
your
The
life?
thing
Now,
is
let
that
me
it
put
does
that
change.
way.
It changes everything. Yeah, it changes the way you think about things. It changes the way you look at things. It changes everything. It's. I mean, right now I'm thinking about it. What I did I got a call from my kid this morning. She called me to tell me she was going to go to school today. It changes, yeah, the way you think about everything.
Are you a good father? Do you think about that? What it takes to bring up
I'm
a
working
child?
on it. I hope that I will be one day. I don't know now. I just, you do what you can.
Is she adorable?
Yeah.
It's the first time in this whole interview that you've broken out in a totally big smile. You're not married, never
No,
have been
I've
married.
never been married.
And everyone who interviews you, the few times you have been interviewed, the same question. Do you want to get married? As as an outside thing, do you think I'd like to be married?
I don't think about it. Once in a while, of course, you can't, you come in contact with it. People talk about themselves getting married, and I would, I guess, like to get married one day. Yeah, I think I would, but it would have to be a certain kind of marriage, I think.
What kind?
Well, it would be whatever they say, a sort of mutual kind of agreement of a sort in terms of how we would live, because my lifestyle is one that's erratic and different, and I would hope that if I married someone that they would be aware of that, and that our lifestyles would be able to mesh.
Do you believe in fidelity?
Yeah. I mean, if that's what your bond is, then yes, of course.
You have been romantically involved with women you've worked with. Diane Keaton, of course, and in 2 Godfather films and so forth. What about, is it easier or harder to love and work and mix the both?
I find it harder to do. When you are with someone you're very close to, you're very sensitive to their, what's going on with them, and they are with you. And so when you're in a condition where you have to be objective and be a part, and you really need tunnel vision to work, it's like, it's difficult. And it did happen to me several times where it was uncomfortable because of that. Some of the freedom goes for me. But then I know people who just,
they want to work together.
They love it.
Yeah.
They really, it feeds them.
Mm-hmm.
Not me.
2 of your leading ladies, who are very good-looking women, Ellen Barkin and Michelle Pfeiffer, who are both very fond of you, say that you have a terrible time doing love scenes, because it's hard for you to do love scenes if you're not what in love? That you can't fake it. You can't fake a love scene.
Well, the idea of the love scene, it's all about how the love scene, for me anyway, if the love scene in Sea of Love is constructed a certain way, it's choreographed and it's built a certain way because it's about furthering the story. It's about how it fits in the story, and how it ties in emotionally. And in Frankie and Johnny, it was about his letting go. Remember, so the scene was significant. It had a certain significance. So then you orchestrate it, and you do it. You're highly technical when you do it. It's not what it appears to be, and you know, it's not really unpleasant. Kissing Michelle Pfeiffer.
It isn't exactly torture. No, kissing Michelle Pfeiffer is not one of the hardest things you've had to do. You'll go on the record as saying that.
Yes.
Are you in love now? You don't have to answer, but it would be nice.
If I was in love, and if I am in love, I really
would not discuss it.
No, I wouldn't.
Do you think people confuse you with your roles?
Yeah, I think that happens.
What do you think they think you are?
Well, I couldn't even guess. I just couldn't even guess because I played so many different roles. Dark, yeah.
People say
that I am.
I don't just mean dark hair. Dark, mysterious.
Well, you know, I guess when you're an actor, you try, at least I do anyway, I've always tried to have the personality stay out of the way of the character I'm playing, so that the performance can live on its own, hopefully, and not be interfered with by my personality.
Let's go back to this whole business of fame. You live in New York, you don't live in Hollywood. Yeah. You live a private life. Yeah. Relatively. I mean, you're not at openings and things and stuff. We don't see you around. If you are a successful actor, you become famous, right? Otherwise, you're not a successful actor. In today's terms.
Yeah. Well, you know, fame is relative, too. You know, some people are famous are not actors. Some people are famous not because they did something and was successful at anything.
What I'm getting at
fame is different than success, though, isn't it?
Fame is different from success, but fame is a byproduct of the success, and it's hard to be successful and then reject the fame.
Oh, no, you can't reject the fame. I accept the fame, I really do. I have been accepting it now for years. I had a little trouble early on accepting it, yes, but not now.
What are the cliches about you? What are the things that you read or hear? The words that I hear describing you, that you read again and again, are, you say, dark, brooding, introspective.
Oh.
Not funny,
those are
light.
Yeah, I would say that's right. That's right. Cliches they are, I think. Of course, I'm not that. I mean, the best way, I think, would be to have someone who's known me for 30, 40 years talk about me. I think that would be, I mean, I would be interested in that because I would say, oh, I wonder what they see. I think that's how you would find out. Someone who really knows, who's seen all these facets of me, because I sort of I'm not looking at myself when I'm doing things, so I don't know.
Do you have a philosophy? Why would you live or direct?
My philosophy is man is a little bit better than his reputation, and a little bit worse.
Do you have a fantasy?
Yes, having my own talk show.
To have your own talk show. Okay, I'll tell you my fantasy. All right? In Scent of a Woman, you get up and you do the most wonderful tango. It just...
Dancing's great. I used to love to dance.
Did you? Do you still? You like to dance?
I don't.
Now, wait a second, if I can figure out how this goes.
I forgot, Barbara. Well, you know, I'd have to be blind to do this.
Close your eyes.
Oh, gee. You come a lot to these dances?
Only when they're strangers.
Here comes the dip.
What's that?
I think we imagine actors like Al Pacino as having a unique gift that's something akin to a magician pulling a rabbit out of a hat. We assume that he gets the part of a cop or a blind man and that somehow his instinct takes over. The magic kicks in and he becomes that person. So how nice it was to hear Al Pacino say that his secret was practice, just doing it over and over again.
All the events that will take
Made all the difference. He was born Alfredo James Pacino in 1940. His parents divorced when he was 2, and Al was raised by his mother and grandparents in the South Bronx. He had 2 passions, baseball and acting. In 1966, he was accepted by Lee Strasberg's famed actor studio in New York. He studied and worked his way up, doing off-Broadway shows and small TV and movie roles. He often played seedy street types. And after Scarface, however, and indeed for most of the 80s, Pacino appeared to be missing in action, surfacing only briefly in the box office bomb, Revolution. Then in 1989, he made a splashy return in the sexy thriller, Sea of Love. Pacino was back, and significantly, he had returned with a sense of humor, readily apparent in his Oscar-nominated turn in Dick Tracy. But when it came to nominations, 7 was his lucky number. Pacino finally won that Oscar. People sometimes ask me how I talk reticent actors into giving an interview. Well, in the case of Al Pacino, I think I just wore him down. We met on 2 different occasions over cappuccino to discuss the remote possibility of sitting down together. Sound glamorous? Well, at first it was work, because he was uncomfortable with the idea of someone asking him almost any question, and I couldn't change because how else do you do an interview? What did change is that over those coffees, we got to know each other. And that his portrayal of a blind war veteran determined to go out with a bang in Scent of a Woman. Pacino has never married, but has romanced over the years some very high-profile women, such as actresses Jo Claiborne, Tuesday Well, and Diane Keaton. He's been very secretive about his private life, and few people know, for example, that in 1989 he had a daughter from a brief relationship. Fame is something that Pacino is still struggling with. Odd, since acting is his life. Eventually landed the part of Michael Corleone in The Godfather. 2 sequels and 2 Oscar nominations later, it is one of the defining roles of his career. Pacino has also been nominated for other fine roles, including his 1973 performance as an undercover cop in Serpico, and his intense, strung-out characterization of a bank robber in Dog Day Afternoon. But not, unfortunately, for the role he told us he is most proud of, the Cuban drug lord in Scarface.